the host of television shows pushing their way into the zeitgeist of entertainment, Stranger Things reigns supreme with its cast of likable youngsters that continues to purge their way through Hollywood, while gleefully being a delightful, likable cast of characters. For all their beloved popularity and driving nostalgia, Stranger Things will always be an approachable dive into sci-fi thriller territory for a mass audience. It's the proper balance of just enough for all sorts of popular and niche books, TV shows, and movies. It's just enough Stephen King's It, it's just enough Goonies, and it's just enough Lovecraft to homogenize it into a hopefully digestible meal of the most appealing yet baseline material to interest just about anyone. Stranger Things tackles and tickles the itch you never had, as it fills the gap for people who never dived into more elaborate yet less initially fun mediums in books like The Changelings by Victor or other work. Stranger Things has a ton in common and nothing in common with all sorts of media it was blended from, and that is what makes it work so well. Creators pitched it with a base founded on their love of mysterious underworldly beings interacting with normal, average, everyday society. The first season owned a lot to world science projects and violent thriller series like Elfen Lied, where a young girl embedded with telekinetic invisible hands also meets a group who gets thrust into dangerous problems in a large conspiracy. The premise never seems as appealing as the execution, since the creative story beats are widely utilized in several mediums. Stranger Things advances past its most popular medium because of its execution and capitalizing on its cast. When it comes down to it, most people will know about what's going on in Season 3 of Stranger Things. Something strange is going on, and the team will once again disband and get a handful on it, and somehow happen upon the evil issue and try to stop it. You'll get a phenomenal acting from the cast. Brown in Eleven is particularly great as she uses her limited vocabulary due to the story to mimic others around her or talk in stilted sentences without seeming emotionless. In fact, for keen-eyed viewers, each character has their own slight tics and mannerisms down to the science. Additionally, the Arnold Schwarzenegger like villain was my favorite of mine because, regardless of their lack of speaking lines, the stoic action and acting just told the line enough for me to be appealed to the character. Or it could just be my Terminator fandom, who knows. Even if it has to do with that, most people who will see that he's one-dimensional, and most critics probably won't like him or viewers. Flashbacks bridge the gaps for viewers to show how the children are growing up and aging and trying to move on. We're dragged past 8 episodes with less methodical pace than prior seasons have done. The characters now have traits that are well established, and you can move on much faster than previous seasons, since we already know what they're thinking and where they're going and what they're trying to do and most of their goals. When it comes down to it, almost all the initial human melodrama is cast to the wayside for a charming budding friendship between a new cast member and redemption for an old, underutilized, and unliked cast member in the past. Once the action starts, the show has a tonal issue in some episodes with drastic breaks of comedy and grotesque horror without always transitioning well. The season tries to be more kid-friendly by including less cursing or innuendo. Even the sickening scenes of horror are not entirely out of place in a PG or PG-13 film. The greater budget also allows for more straightforward showcases of the enemy's unsightly appearance. The show still has its hooks, such as the host of quirky and nostalgic sections, such as parents listening to phone calls, which was a relic of the 80s or so, or songs that are so catchy yet old you can't help but sing and playfully mouth them with the characters on screen. Many may relate to the overprotective Hopper in his played for laughs interacting with his adopted daughter and psychic Eleven. You could also disagree with his actions, but you come to see his side, and the story tries its best to show where he was right or wrong in what he's doing. The show has a host of plotlines that just breaks off or don't work well, as the directors decide to hand-wave arguments away around there being not much time to discuss such problems once the action gets rolling. It's an issue that might get on the nerves of some keen viewers, since you're either too engaged in the tiny quibbles of the cast you've grown to love, or feel dreadfully bored of the issues and relish in them moving on to the heart of the Stranger Things girls. The connection shared by old cast members is more palpable than ever. Some particularly endearing scenes were shared from the older Steve and his younger toothless pal. Other connections are tested around the average trials of growing up in teen relationships. It's more nuanced take with the backdrop of the 80s and the nerdy pals bumping and bubbling their way through tribulations. The show has a slower build-up and never develops as slowly as prior seasons, but it does take its time developing the A plot, while the strange new problem troubling a small town is also done building with the B plot. characters' relationships and easily branched off parts are connected in the end to the main A plot. Everything about Stranger Things rams into the last few episodes. Whether you're in the mood for the usual tropes of running and screaming from monster battles seen in prior seasons, you'll need to get ready for a bigger helping of action and bigger stakes. Battles in Stranger Things Season 3 jump into high gear with a bigger and high-octane monster for a greater high-octane third outing. You'll wonder what you saw in the prior seasons, more quaint take on a monster and its strange things just outside the corner of your eye. Of course, these new elements come with baggage. You're aware that the show no longer wagers its bets on being a pastiche of other genre films and movies, but on its own claim to fame. It knows people like nostalgic winks at old cult product placement, Atari, and all the branches of product glancing the screen to remind you of the era. It's an element I never disliked in prior entries, nor have I ever felt the constant claims of it being a detriment to the show's engagement. The show took my claim and crushed it. Even if I still do not mind the product or overuse of callbacks to the 80s, I know others may be taken out of the story with the barrage of material now that the show is so popular and companies are willing to donate their 80s gifts for a synergetic popularity boost. The 80s products blend into the story in ways that the characters seem like they are aware of the time period's quirks and are time traveling to remark on them, instead of just living in the time that ubiquitously accepts and has these products around them at all times. For non-fans or those in disbelief that the new season could be a delightful and refreshing take, there are some appealing back to the basic changes. After the mixed reaction of the second season attempt to reinvigorate the franchise with unneeded or ill-injected world building and a tacked-on episode about other superpowered beings, Season 3 does away with the idea that any of the events even happened. The events of Season 2 are all canon, but slightly tweaked, like Eleven changing her hair and personality being reverted back. She is back to her naive and lovable little girl people love and fell for in the first season. Other characters like the annoying little sister from the season 1 get more screen time. This character is a hit and miss for most people since she is always berating people for being nerdy and dorky, which comes off ill-served to the fans and fandom that probably watch this show and enjoy some of the geeky sci-fi fantasy material the show is based off of and the crew that's in it. The plot of the two adults' budding relationship and the will they won't they get together is hammered with sprinkles of constant bickering that hammers on sitcom levels of annoying jokes. The Hopper police character is still in development and growing as a character, so his grating tact for relationships never quite lands as anything more than toxic behavior. We're supposed to root for him when he injects himself into his adopted daughter's relationship because of his overprotecting parent stick due to his loss of his own child and never learning to deal with a teenager. Even when it is done, and he's carrying on like a baby after not getting his way in a relationship, we are supposed to feel like he is a joke. He unsuccessfully tries to weasel his way around the friend zone into a relationship with a grieving mother, and it seems mixed in approach and slightly jarring until we get more context later on. Before that, you might not even stay around or like his character enough to understand his point of view. Most of the relationships and their issues are played for laughs, and the problems are lampshaded. The lampshading is so direct that it gets insulting. When characters stop in place to directly discuss how Eleven is in full control of her decisions and has womanly autonomy or other issues, or characters remark on how characters should just get together. These issues seem misplaced for this plot or the era, since these issues were important then, but weren't discussed in tones so similar to the 2019 counterparts they are trying to possibly appeal towards, or just the overall sitcominess of what they're trying to showcase when lampshading the issues straightforward in our faces. Some events are coincidental, with characters popping in at just the right time or jetting from one location to the other in record time, so much so that the pacing seems off, with constant jumps to 3 or so locations of major characters and their group activities. The lack of police and general neglect of people to notice strange things going on was also alarming. The plot seemed in prior seasons more circular than ever before, with another attempt to breach into the world and change it into something more sinister. Finally, the season has a Netflix curse of slowly building up to the best elements. The initial 3 or so episodes would be quite dull unless you're invested in the characters already or don't mind heavy build-up, which is at odds with today's current need to jam-pack the first few minutes of production to keep waiting interest from escaping. This is a curse and a gift, as seen in recent trends, where even trailers showcase 5 seconds of splash footage before a trailer even starts, slightly due to the idea that consumers needed a burst of large stimulus or their excitement won't peak and stay interested. The gift is that Stranger Things demands more of its audience and respects their ability to pay attention and let plots settle at a reasonable, relaxed pace. Thus, the show is much more long than the other seasons. In fact, the final episode is mimicking short movie-length pictures. There's not much to disinterest fans of the show. The showrunners double down on everything to charm their way into the hearts of growing fans. You get to see more of the mature group who takes on bigger issues. At most, you just hope for more information about what the villain wants and what the main villain of the story can do to characterize themselves more. The villain gets no time to develop when the main draw, 11, or her co-stars are at the forefront. Social media in its ability to affect story productions is greatly felt, since most elements of the story draw a few takes from popular subjects remarked on in today's culture that wouldn't be as prominent in 80s vernacular. It also seems like they took some information about what people did not like from last season and tried their best to sway it off of it. Overall, the season is great for fans and enough to interest non-fans. That's enough time to build characters and stakes while closing a bunch of plot points left from prior shows at seasons. I hope a shortened movie can be developed that better summarizes the show and garners a larger market appeal. For now, the show is a fun binge watch with a few pacing issues and minor gripes or nitpicks, but it stays as a classic Netflix original experience many will enjoy. That's why I give it an 80%.